So one more time, thank you so much for joining us in this session of Ask Alex. Um, so the topic of today is I'm going to start using the Bridge Wizard for quick modeling bridge alternatives, right? So it's telling the truth, it's really easy to do, but it has certain tricks, right? So you should be seeing my desktop right now, right? I think it's doing that, or it's paused. Oh, no, it's paused. All right, now. So this session of today, again, as you're seeing this, is the Bridge Wizard. So I just already have OpenBridge Designer up on my screen, right? Well, they're going to start the project. Now, as well, I sent before, right, the link in which you can download the manual and the data set that I'm using. If you don't have it, I'm going to put the link one more time into the chat window. So this is the data set that we're going to be using in general, just to have the same files and trying to replicate what I have in after I finished it. So the idea is that you get this and practice, right, following the video. So I put it on the chat window, the link in which you can download, if you haven't done it already, the training manual and dataset. So of that training manual and dataset, what are going to be doing basically, so as an example of the wizard, is module 5, that is steel girder bridge using the wizard, right? And explain it along the way. I'm not going to follow it directly, but then you will see what I'm talking about, right? So saying that, let's go for it, right? So what I'm going to do is to start another group, right? I'm going to call it, I think it's module 5, right? So I will call it module 5. And I'm going to get into OpenBridge Modeler, right? Into OpenBridge Modeler. And for that, I'm going to pick the proper workspace. Our training manual goes with our Imperial workspace. So that's what I'm going to get. Right, I'm going to go to the OpenBridge Modeler project. And I'm going to open the curved steel girder bridge, right? When you get it, this file, as you browse it in the directories, it's going to be a blank file. So it's going to open as such, right? So let's wait until it opens. And the file is blank, right? So as I showed you on the previous session of our lunch meetings here, right, I need to bring the information that, the minimum information that are required to start a bridge, right? So the minimum information that I require is, as a reference file, the minimum information that I need in folder is the ground, that's one, right? And it's also the geometry, right? The alignments profiles should be on file. That's the wrong way people usually do it, right? As an extra, maybe you get the corridor modeling also coming from Open Roads. So as I bring all of this in, right, and accept the settings, coincident word, and all of that, then I'm ready to start my project, right? So this is the training files that we always use. And the bridge is going to be along this ramp, right? This is the corridor, right? That line that you see, don't worry about it. It's just the limits of the corridor. And then basically there is a gap in the corridor model, which we're going to be filling with our bridge, right? That ramp, if I go with my selections tool here, provides a name. Oh, its name Ramsey. So Ramsey is the one that, right? So that's it. So this is going to be that cell, right? I'm just going to span the screen right here. So I'm going to do the wizard, right? So with the wizard, right, I just going to go for it and see what I can do with this, right? And then that requires a little bit of preparation, right? Let's go first with the obvious one. What is this materials? This is new on version 10.09, right? So let's go for it. Okay, now, is that the materials that I want for my bridge, right? You know that these materials that I can pick, right? For example, bearing, class A, what is this? What is this coming from? Oh, this is coming from a material library that is part of the software itself, right? So this could be that, for example, right? So this is the material that I want, right? So what is this pier cap? Oh, that is concrete material, right? So we pick one for it, right? So before getting anything into the wizard and even displaying this into OpenBridge, fill up these materials. If you don't, right? Think about it. If I forget to assign a material of the columns or the whole pier, it could be blank. I just run it. So in this project, for example, I'm going to have 10 piers. So if I don't fill the material, so well, then I have to go to each pier and assign the new material to it, the one that I forgot to do, right? So just prepare your work, prepare ahead of time what you can do. Barrier. Oh, I create a new material here, Alex Concrete. That doesn't exist, right? So I can just select a new material here, the concrete too, right? Now, these materials come from uh, the library here in utilities that I can set up myself, right? This is a matter of typing a new material and create one like Alex Concrete and fill up all the properties. So again, as a setup, just fill up as much as you know here, right? Because if not, well, if it's a two-span bridge, hey, this is no big deal. This is 10 piers, so hey, you will be facing changing this in every single shot, right? So that's one. Now, the most important one, right here, geometry. That's what we do our bridge itself, right? So first, the name of the bridge, of course, right? Uh, bridge one, obviously, the type of bridge. It's going to be a steel bridge, right? And since somebody is asking about the materials, yes, every DOT will have its own material list, right? So the one that I'm showing here, for example, it's mine, right? Florida has its own material list. Texas will have some. I mean, Connecticut, all the DOTs are setting up. Like, for example, this class A, as I remember, was used in the Oklahoma class that I did. The only one, class A and double A. That's it, right? So each DOT is different. So every DOT will basically set up what they want to see, right? So that's that, right? So coming back, type of bridge is important. Alignments. Well, you need to set up the alignment as well. So what alignment is this? I figured out with the selection set that this alignment we're going to be placing the bridge is ramp C. So I can select it from the list. And this list is getting this list because it's basically reading the DGN file and grabbing all the alignments that are present as a reference or live in the file, right? And if you don't know the alignment or you don't know how to figure out the name of the alignment, I did this, right? You can just go and select bridge alignment and snap to it. Oh, that's the alignment. And as you move it, it will dictate where you're going to start the bridge, right? So you can just type the station afterwards and say, oh, no, the bridge needs to start at a station 32 plus 80, for example, right? So you can just tweak to that and say, oh, okay, no, I'm going to start the bridge at a given station. The next step is the templates, right? Okay, how is the configuration of your deck? It's like that, right? It's super what, right? So, yeah, and we're talking about templates as well, right? What about the pier? What pier are you going to use, right? Is that pier, for example, of all the library, is that good enough, right? Or the shape is good, right? I want to use this. No, 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 no. I want to use this, for example. It's going to be a hammerhead. It's a single ramp. So this will be look good, actually. But are the dimensions okay, right? The cap length is okay. The taper length is okay. Because I'm going to be placing 8 of them in one shot with all the piles and everything else, right? And if the dimensions are not exactly what I want, well, then I have to go 8 times and fix it on every single one of them, or doing extra operations to replace it, right? There's some dynamic operations, but I need to do that. So are you willing to go to every structure that you have placed already and place it, right? That will be a little bit challenging for you. I mean, challenging because you're going to be wasting time, right? So that's what's going to happen, right? So we need to check if the template that I'm going to use is the one that I want, not for the shape, but for the dimensions, right? That's one. So that's what I want to bring that example, because what about
Marianela.
that's what a slab, right? So what about the slab? The slab will be the same, right? On the deck, that slab that you're going to use is that what you want? Is that for a single ramp with a super like that, right? If you do that, if you place that, you can. Then you gotta go after you finish the bridge. If you don't take care of the templates beforehand, you gotta go modify the super elevation, modify the slope, place it. It will accommodate the bridge, right? It will be dynamic. Yes, it will accommodate the bridge, right? And then on top of that, oh, then you need to modify the piers too, right? Because you select a very generic template and not for your project, right? But then if you change the width of the deck, if it happens, so maybe the beam layout will change because the edges of the deck, which the placement of the beams refers to, will be different. So it no may get the effect that you want. And then you got to do checking after checking after checking, right? So that is what you can do it. Don't get me wrong, right? But I'm trying to give you the most efficient way to do this, right? And the efficient way is obviously, like all the engineers, to plan ahead. What do I need to make this fully automatic? And in one shot, I can do the wizard, right? So what I plan ahead and saying, okay, the slab will be a little bit different, right? Because the slab is a single ramp, and I don't have in my library a ramp that looks like the one that I need. So let's forget for the wizard a little bit, and let's modify the elements that we need. We need new elements for the deck. We need new elements for the pier because I want to place with the wizard exactly what I need. So for that, I will go to my utilities and say, let's see the decks that I have available, right? And the decks that I have available, or the templates that I have, is that, and I'm not going to cheat to you. This is the one already made, all right? So I would say, no, 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 this is the one that I have as a standard, but it doesn't help me because it needs to be modified according to the geometry that I want, right? So what I'm going to do is, well, I'm going to cheat. I'm going to say, hey, you know what? Right click, copy that one, right? And with the copy, then I can just right click, rename it, and call it, this is the ramp class that I'm going to use, right? And then start modifying exactly to the geometry that I need, right? So for example, P1 is the right lane. Somebody defined it already as a right lane, right? But this ramp is like that, right? So basically, somebody told me that that distance is 8.75, right? And the slope is in full super, right? Somebody has calculated this, and it's this, right? As I save it, I cannot proceed any longer, right? So as I save it, I see how the ramp is changing. So I'm good. I got to do the same process on the left, right? On P5, that again, somebody created for me in terms of the standard. And the left lane is a little bit different, right? And again, if you follow the manual, the distance is 16.6. And the slope, again, being in full super, is 0.05. So I save it, and then this is the ramp that I need, right? Always remember that this WP, this working point, is where the alignment and profile are going to write. So that's what it's going to do, right? I don't need to offset the deck or anything like that. We got that commands, but in this case, no need. It's just playing with the dimensions of the left and the right, right? So that will do it, right? Now, remember, I'm applying directly the super elevation here, right? Somebody has the telephone. Will you mute your telephone? I think I'm muting the microphones, but if somebody has joined from the telephone, you can mute the telephone. I got some background noise. I cannot mute it from here. Can do that, please. All right. So, as I said, I entering the super elevation directly, right? So, but then because roadway hasn't given me yet the actual super elevation file. If I have it, I can go and assign it, and then the software will just rotate the deck automatically, right? If you want to do that, you can use exactly the same template that we have, right? Just make sure that if you're going to attach the super elevation, in order for the software to understand that reaction, these have to be on, like it is, super elevation flag. So here I'm hard coding the super 5.5%, right? But then if they give me the super elevation file and I want to override that, I just attach it, apply it, and it will overwrite. Because of this, it will overwrite whatever number you set up. Right? So I got my slab, my ramp class template to run as a deck now. I don't need to do any modifications. I just do it right on the template library, right? So it's saved, and then I can just close. Good enough on that part, right? Now, what else? What about the pier, right? I told you that the pier itself, I can use, I want a hammerhead, right? But this hammerhead that maybe is this shape, maybe it doesn't have the dimensions that I want, because I want to place 8, 10 of them. I want it to be perfect right from the back, from the beginning, right? So what we can do is, same thing that we did with the deck itself, is to copy that, because I want to modify it, right? And make it my own. So I'm going to call it hammer class. And then that particular one, I can just go edit it and accommodate it to my needs, right? Because I know exactly what I need, right? I don't need, for example, if I follow the manual, I don't need 36, I need 25 feet of cap, right? But the left taper length and all of that needs to be modified and right here too. Right? I keep adjusting this. Let me see how it looks. Oh, I need to modify the column too, right? And also the analytical type. I want this when it's sent it to Leap to calculate. It's not a multi-column. It's going to be a hammerhead. So it's going to use the hammerhead requirements there. What else do I need? Oh, I need to change the column, right? Because the column is too wide. So I want the column, again, to be perfect. So the column width, I want it to be 114 inches. Now it will look really good right from the back, right? So this will be the new hammerhead that I want to apply from my project. And that should be good. So now I got deck class or ramp class and my hammerhead class ready to be applied, right? So here, for example, right, I got a question here that says that the variables in the template need to match the roadway file variables to super elevation. No, it doesn't. I will try to place it and see if it works, but I think I have a super elevation file. It doesn't need to be applied. It doesn't need to be the same. No, for the super, right? So I got the two templates ready. So now I am ready to proceed with the wizard now. One more time. So let's go with the wizard. Now knowing what I want, okay, and having all the stuff that I need, my variables, my materials stayed, right? So now I can go with confidence and say, look, this is a new bridge, it's going to be a steel bridge. The alignment is this one, and it starts more or less here, right? And that's the station. Wow, I matched exactly the station in the manual. But then the deck template is the one that I just created. So I pick it from that, and it's what's called, remember, RAM class. Then here we go, right? So I need what? I need actually here 10 spans of 180 feet. I can change this later, right? But then this is the more or less standard that is going to cover from here all the way to the end. The skew angles, that you know that in the spans you can just type, for example, if I do 180, 100, 120. So basically I'm saying that I have three spans, one of 180, one of 100, and one of 120. Or I can do combinations of these. So for example, I can say one of 100 and two at 120. So I got three spans, right? Or, well, as the manual is saying, 10 of 180 feet, right? Control the beam spacing. I can also regulate that, but then as a standard, I would say 4 at 645. I'm just using the numbers of the manual, right? And then you can pick, it's either a roll shape, right, that you can pick from the library. Remember, this is steel bridge, so you can pick a roll shape that we have here, right? Or you can now, in the 10.09 version, sort of create a template or a build-up beam, right? So later you can hunch it, right, if you go and edit it, but here is just standard, so it's going to be all across 72 inches on the web or 20 inches on the top and bottom flange. As in later you can customize that, right? The abutment template, I didn't do any modifications to it, so I just pick whatever is on the list, right? If you have something very specific as well, I mean, you can just use it. But then here on the pier, I'm going to use exactly what I created, right? The hammerhead class that I have. Where are you? Right here. And select, right? The barriers, well, this is standard, right? So I can pick, if I follow the manual again, I mean, I can pick the Florida ones that we have, right? Florida on the left, right? And maybe let's pick another different one on the right side. It needs to be side by side, right? So it will be like that, right? Completely different, one or the other, right? So saying that, then 410, everything checks out, fire, right? So let's wait and see the questions you have here. Uh, well, Charles, yeah, will the wizard read the super elevation model provided by the roadway group? The wizard will not read it, right? That's what I'm hard coding here on the deck, the the super elevation, right? But after you place it, because the wizard doesn't do anything different than doing the commands at the top, it just does it faster, right? So with the wizard, you can just later, after the wizard has placed all of that, you can place the 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 super elevation and adjust to it. You can do that afterwards, right? After all of this is created, right? So again, the wizard it doesn't create anything different on on that, right? This bridge that it has just created is just the same as doing this step by step. And if you want to modify it, you can just use the same tools that we always use in bridge, right? The wizard is just something that it does fairly, I would say, fairly quick, right? Now, the other question that it was posed here, what about if you want to use a wearing surface on top of the deck? So, well, basically, it will be a deck on top of a deck, right? So you want to mimic that, and sometimes you want to even quantify that, right? So in order to do that, there are many different options. If it's the entire deck, because it's the wearing surface, and you want to do it, right? So then, yes, maybe the best way will be a deck on top of the deck. Now, the question on that is where you measure your deck elevations, right? Your deck elevations will be measured. Or do you need to lower the actual deck to accommodate for the inches or asphalt that you're going to place as the wearing surface? So if it's that, right, if you want to do that, so there are many different options. One option, for example, if my deck is already placed here, right, you can go, let me pick the deck. Let me, just pick the deck to see what you have. The deck, yeah, is when you pick the deck, you want to adjust or account for that to place a wearing surface. Remember that you got the option for vertical offset. So it says you want a 3-inch wearing surface, for example. So then you gotta lower it here. So the real deck, it will be lower a little bit, and then you place another deck on top of that. That will be 3 inches thick, right? Then the other question for you, Charles, is when you calculate the deck, calculate. Of course, you don't calculate the strength of the wearing surface, right? So then that deck that I just placed, this deck, for example, that is my concrete deck, that will be the deck to use for the analytical calculations, right? And that will be a true analytical deck. The deck that I place as a wearing surface with a different material, asphalt, for example, right? So then I will place the deck and I will change it to false. So then Leaf Bridge Concrete, for example, doesn't pick it up and try to analyze two decks on top of each other. It won't work, right? So this is maybe the trick that you need to do. And in Leap, as being analytical, it doesn't consider that wearing surface deck that you place, you got to enter manually the load that is getting into that, right? But that would be maybe the workaround to place a deck on top of a deck. And sometimes this is the same workaround that people use to place to place median sidewalks, to place sidewalks, right? Sidewalks could be placed as a barrier element, right? But also could be placed as a limited deck option too, right? So many options right there, right? So let's see. Just going with the piers one more time, right? Uh, can the parameters of the pier template be modified in the standard library? What are the drivers cross for? Yes, you can do it, right? And you can do it and make it part of your library, right? Now, not in the MX file. The piers actually, these elements are modified inside the software via the dialog box. There is no script or any other file that you can just type and then load it. It has to be done through a dialog box, right? Right now, if you place the deck in pieces, right? Jeff is asking, I mean, maybe for a stage construction, right? I mean, or maybe a deck span by span. We send the entire deck to lead and then calculate. You know? RM maybe do a different job, but at the end, it's just a single piece there, right? And then if you have an approach slab, again, that is another option. Florida DLT, for example, does this. The approach slab as a deck, we don't. You know, if you, because, let's see. You got an approach slab right here. So you will have one deck, two decks, three decks, right? Leap will not see that. Leap can only see one deck, the analytical deck on top of the piers, right? The deck on the approach slab, you got to label as non-analytical deck, or false, and then you have to calculate it separately if you need to, right? And right now, the settings in the wizard cannot be saved, right? There is no settings to say, hey, load this. It remembers though the last entry that you did, but not the settings itself, right? So, well, this is the wizard. But now let's review what it has placed, right? Let's see what I have here. Oh, this is off, right? What happened here? Well, what happened here is that all our peers about the show, right? They are placed at the center of the pier, and then they follow the alignment, right? So that's what is happening here. But remember, this RAM is off. I mean, it's not symmetrical, right? So that's what I have this. That pier needs a certain offset to the other direction, right? To be right center along the RAM, right? So I need to do that, right? To accommodate it. It has placed it, but then I have to go to every single pier there and move that distance to make it center, right? So what should I do? Well, certainly I can go to Explorer and review what I have placed, right? And on that, right, let's see what I have on my Explorer. I have the bridge unit, that, and then I have what is supported, and I have the piers, right? Okay, I have pier, right? So I can just go check the properties of that pier. I can select it too, right? So when I check that, that is the horizontal offset that I need to change, right? But I need to change it in all these 9 piers plus the 2 abutments. So I gotta go change that dimension. In the manual, the dimension is 3.9, for example. So to take this to my advantage, what I can use, or what I can do is to do this. I can go here, right? Select all of them, right? And as all of them are selected now, then I can do this limited though, right? So I can do this modification, right? And then the deck, no, I don't want to the cap adjusted with the deck because I adjust it automatically in the template. So I will adjust it and say, move that, but then also as you select it on the properties, right? I want the cap not to be adjusted by the deck. Just use whatever dimension I put on the template. And then that's it. Now, it's all center. I have to just reselect it again, right? Clear the selection, select the whole thing, right? And now it's fully centered on what I need, right? So that was that little trick there. Now, one of the questions that you ask is, can the pier cap could be adjusted by the skews? Yeah, you got many options here. When you select the pier, Jim, you got the option here to say cap length. I use none, right? You can use it by the width of the deck. So if the width of the deck is 20, well, the cap length will be 20. But if it's on a skew, that 20 feet deck along the skew may be 21, 22. So you can say along the skew, and it will just enlarge it following that skew length. So you can do it, right? So that could be done, right? In this case, it's perpendicular, so by a skew or deck, really it doesn't matter, right? What else? Another question from Jimmy here. Can the bridge deck vary the width along the alignment? Well, not in the wizard, right? But then also remember that you got two options here, right? If you go into the deck template here and modify the properties, are you here? Modify the properties here. You have the variable constraints in which you can either define as a table right here, for example, right? Left width lane is hard-coded. I hard-coded at 16.6, but if I activate it, I can generate my own table of dimensions, right? So along the stations, my deck could change in dimensions for widenings, for example, right? That's one way to do it. On the left and also on the right, I can activate this and make the deck vary the way I want. That's one way to do it, by a table. The other way, it will be to, if I go this in top view, oh, no, feed view, Alex, right, is to actually create a civil line here, right, and place a line that says, you know what, the deck is going to follow, let me do bold stuff, right? The deck will follow this line. So I can just do variable constraints, the same on the deck, and say, make it follow that line. And the deck will just vary along the line that you place. And it could be following the horizontal, but if you attach a profile to that line, it will follow the horizontal and vertical pattern, right? So yeah, it can be done. And there is videos in YouTube, in our channel, that we have how to place a variable deck using graphical lines. The other one, we explain it in the, even on the training guides, that you can do it by hard coding a table, right? But then on the YouTube, there is a video of that, right? What about undoing? Yeah, I mean, if you place it with the wizard in one shot and you hit undo, the whole bridge will disappear, right? But then massive changes like that, if I modify one pier and say I didn't like it, I do undo, the last command, it's reverse, right? So it's a true undo. Right. One more question for Jamie is, can the beam girder be coded? Yes, he can, right? And he can follow even his own path. Later, yeah, that's a good topic to actually, friend here, Steve is here, is very active. Thank you, Steve. Shout out to you, man. That he has a good presentation on how he coded beams and basically represented every path of a pre-stressed girder beam that is a straight on a curve concrete bridge. So it's a good one, showing you how you can flare every beam. Actually, we have another one that each beam, especially on steel, sometimes it's requested that the steel beams not to be parallel to the alignment, but have a rounded geometry. So you can even define an horizontal alignment for every beam and make that follow that, right? And oh, the specs on my laptop, right? Let me see if I can do system information here. Yeah, that's the specs. You can see it on my screen, right? It's basically an HP ZBook, not advertisement to HP, but that's what we use. 17-inch, and I have what 64 gigs of memory. It's an NVIDIA card, so it's a workstation, right? Usually, what they say, the more memory, the better, right? But in general, if you do heavy visualizations, I don't do it that much, right? With 64 bit gigs, you should be fine. And this computer is already 4 years old, I think, right? So, yeah, it should be fine, right? Yeah, with the offsets on the deck, you're right. If you transfer this to Leap, it's a little bit tricky sometimes, right? You have to adjust it maybe in Leap. That offset stuff sometimes is not well understood by Leap, and we know that. Yeah. Oh, Steve, you have to advertise your video now. So, yeah, well, I mean, check check Structural Steve in YouTube. He got great videos too. So that's another channel that you can subscribe. So subscribe to ours first, okay? So the OpenBridge channel in for Bentley, but then there is also Structural Steve in YouTube that he has all that videos there as well, right? So, well, guys, that's all there is. So then after that, I mean, just to finish, after you got the bridge here, right? It's just you got the bridge. You can do quantities, you can do geometry reports. This is nothing different. And doing this bridge, I would say the long way, but the wizard will just give you very quick starting point to do this and see if the alternative is feasible or not. Maybe you run quantities and decided, my gosh, this is too expensive, or that maybe I need to adjust something. So I can just run quick quantities since the materials have also a price tag, a unit price to it. I can run the report and say how much it's going to cost, right? And then, well, I got alternative one, right? So, well, that's what is this? $4 million, maybe, whatever, right? So, or then they say, well, look, keep this file, open another one, another blank one, and say, let's try if it's a segmental bridge, right? And then you can build a segmental bridge with OpenBridge, right? Not on the wizard yet, it's coming, but you can do it. And then or try the corded pre-stressed girder too, right? So you can try some alternatives very, very quick, right? Right? So that's all there is, guys. Again, one more time, thank you so much. This video is going to be posted, I would say, as long as WebEx process it, I want to post it. So give me by Monday or Tuesday, it should be there already, right? The one last one. That is a good one. Are the footings set according to the existing ground line? Yes, by default, yes, because I attached the ground, right? But if not, what you can do, right? Remember, I attached the ground as a reference file, right here. So I can activate the terrain, right? As I activate the terrain, I can just go to the piers and say, I want this pier, 20 feet below the ground, whatever it is. So I can just activate the terrain and again go here. And when I modify the pier, right, I can just make it part of the, say, like, for example, here, elevation constraints. Where are you? Right here, elevation constraints, right? And since I have the terrain active, I can go footings and say I want it 30 feet, just to show you, right? And then hit OK. And then that particular footing will read the ground and make it deep, right? Or you can do the selection that I did with the properties and activate, and all of them could be different because reacting to the ground, right? And How do you have the pier cap to follow the cross slope? Well, I mean, there is an option here when you do elevation constraints. Just to answer that question. When you do the elevation constraints, I think this is what you want, that you cap to follow a vertical offset or elevation and the top slope parallel to the deck or level. You can activate that and you follow that, right? So, all right, I think we're on time. One more time, thank you so much. See you in 2 weeks. Wait for my invitation. I just sent it once. I don't want to, fill up your inbox. Just pass the word. If you want more people to subscribe, just send me an email. You know my email, alex.maverich@bentley.com. On that invitation, I will put you on the list, and you will only get one email a week before the event. All right? So other than that, thank you so much. Hey, Raul. And thank you so much one more time. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.